Caden Wallace's grand slam last night gives him 10, one of 5 Razorbacks in double-digit home runs. That's certainly one thing they've got over Tennessee. Only one player double-digit home runs for the Vols. Hawgs have 5, led by Matt Goodhart's 12, 11 from Robert Moore, 10 apiece from Christian Franklin, Caden Wallace, and Brady Slavens. You got to appreciate Caden Wallace, a true freshman who is slashing .303, .386, .520, playing a good right field, someone who'd never played the outfield before, and definitely a building block of this program in the future, and right now, too. Clay Henry joining us. He's the editor and publisher of Hawgs Illustrated. He joins us every Wednesday here on Halftime. You can hear him on the Morning Rush a couple times each week, too. Clay, this is, it's a veteran team that Arkansas has, but I'm appreciative of the one true freshman and what he's done this year as well. Caden Wallace, I mean, he's been the 3-hole hitter, and he's been the right fielder for every game. He's learning a new position, and I think he's held his own and then some this year. I don't know if he'll be freshman of the year in the SEC, but he's certainly going to make the all-freshman team.
He was touted as a third base specialist, we've got a couple of really good third basemen, so teach him the outfield, and he looks like he's been there his whole life. Yeah, he's got some instincts out there, plus a great arm, and I've watched him play one game at third base this season, and I think he'll be terrific over there once he gets to the hot corner next season. So, you got the Arkansas State game past you. You just had to focus on that for a day, really, and now it's a matter of, every weekend's a crazy weekend in the SEC, but here it is. It's the 9th weekend of the conference schedule, Clay, and Arkansas is tied with Tennessee for the overall conference lead. Maybe not a surprise to see the Razorbacks there, but it is to see Tennessee there. And they're going to have 100% capacity, and, man, it's like the top is ready to blow off in Knoxville this weekend. Yeah, it won't be a big crowd. They, a little over 4,000 is all they've got room for in that stadium. And you kind of have to feel like what's coming next for Tony Vitello is that they will build him something a little nicer. It's easily the worst. Well, maybe Missouri would rank in there. Yeah. Kentucky's a little better than it once. We don't get to Kentucky much. But, when you look at what's in the East, that's one of the, I call it armpits of college SEC baseball. So, and they deserve better than that. They're terrific, and they're not going to back off where they are now. They are a threat for Vanderbilt in that division and Florida. Tony is his track record at Missouri, TCU, Arkansas, and now Tennessee is that he finds elite talent, and he learned how to be a head coach under Dave Van Horn, and I'm sure he's going to say that about 10 times this week. And they are good. And this will be – I think last night was a tryout for postseason play for the pitching staff, finding guys that they could trust. And they'll do a little bit more. I think everybody's kind of focusing on, we're trying to win the SEC championship. But really what you're doing is trying to get ready for postseason. That's what all this is about. And you got to find – a few more innings from these guys. You cannot continue to do starter plus cops for 5 innings. There's just going to be too many games when you get into postseason. Could be, 4 games in a regional, 3 games, 3 straight days, and you don't want to lose games. You can't afford to, we'll pitch off this one and get to Sunday. That strategy doesn't work in postseason. So I think the highlight to me was Lockhart and Nolan. And, I know y'all are focused on Wiggins and as a possible starter, but what Nolan did in the 9th inning, nasty movement all at the knees or lower, is just terrific. And that will play in Knoxville. It'll play in Hoover. It'll play, in a regional, a sub-regional. It'll play in Omaha. That's the kind of stuff that you've been waiting to see from that guy.
Well, the more the merrier as far as pitchers that they feel confident in, that's for sure. But it's also obvious.
I think y'all
in the last segment, y'all touched on that a little bit. You don't ever know when you're going to get in an extra inning game in postseason. In that happened in Omaha one year, and you used up your pitching. I think they had to pitch Keuchel in relief. And you just never know when you're going to get into a 14-inning game and you think, we just gobbled up some guys. And you need a Heston Toll or a Lyle Lockhart. And those guys are going to be valuable. And so I think Lockhart, it looked like maybe he had needed some rest because he was different last night than he was in his previous 2 starts.
Yeah, I mean, he was sharp. He was nowhere near sharp
No
in
question.
the previous 3 or 4 times out there. And there's no doubt that the more the merrier as far as the number of pitchers you feel confident in, because you can lay out a script of a way you want a game to go, and you know what they say about best laid plans. But the plans have really worked themselves out to when Patrick Wicklander pitches on a Friday that he gets the ball into the 6th or the 7th inning and then gives it to Cops and he takes it the rest of the way. I kind of wonder, and it would depend on the score, I wonder if at some point, even in a postseason game, they might let Wicklander go for a little bit. Because, I'm not very worried, Clay, about them overusing Cops. I have people asking me, are they abusing him? I don't see that at all. I don't think he's being abused at all. Are you worried that the pitches will accumulate to the point where maybe in a month or so he's not as effective?
He's getting 5 days rest. And the good thing about Omaha is if you get there, the games are spaced out. Now, you get to the championship series, it's boom, boom, boom. But there's some rest between games, the way they flip-flop the different, the 2 brackets. You play a day, then you're off a day. So there's that for him. And, you can get in a game where you get a lead, you don't use him that game. That's still a possibility that they can play a regional and not need him on a Friday night. If, they get a number 4 seed and they pound him a little bit, it's like that. Maybe he doesn't pitch the first game of the regional. So that's just like last night. I mean, you play a team like Arkansas State and, it just depends on what number 4 seed you get. And they're likely to get the worst number 4 seed as the number 1 seed in the tournament, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what it would be. Hopefully, if you end up in first place there. Clay, I try to figure out why is this team so good? Why is Arkansas 37-9 when they're not a perfect team? I mean, no team is, but they're not a perfect team. They go, lengthy stretches without scoring sometimes. Still don't have starting pitching figured out all the way. There's one reliever that they feel extremely confident in, but yet this team just wins series after series. The 2018 team, Clay, lost 5 SEC series, all on the road. There are some people that think that was a more talented team than what Dave has right now, but they lost 5 SEC series. This team at worst is going to lose 2. What is it about this team that makes them so good?
Yeah, I think they're, first of all, you go back to preseason and they've got 4 guys that are playing in the positions that are all SEC first team. And all 4 of those guys, are probably going to be on, they've lived up to their expectations when you're talking about, Casey Opitz, Matt Goodhart, Robert Moore, and Christian Franklin. Those are studs. And Caden Wallace is going to be on an all SEC freshman team, right? They have got, and Jalen Battles has been good at shortstop. He's delivered some clutch hits, 3 RBI in the clinching game Sunday. His first SEC home run. He makes a few errors, but he doesn't make as many errors as Casey Martin made. So he's an improvement at shortstop. He's got good range. And Casey Opitz, Robert Moore, Christian Franklin, Jalen Battles, they are what you want. They are terrific up the middle. Terrific.
Yeah. I think that's definitely one aspect of it. They just seem to know how to win games. And being as strong as they are up the middle, Clay, you're right.
They're well coached. Well coached.
You got to be good on the spine of the field. They're good in the spine of the field, right up the middle.
That's right.
All right, Clay's with us for one more segment. Smackdown, you tell him, we'll do that in the next segment. Don't worry about it. You got questions for Clay, 877-377-6963.
You got a couple of former Dave Van Horn assistants that are head coaches in the SEC. He doesn't like coaching against Rob Childress. They're great friends. I wonder how Dave feels about coaching against Tony Vitello. Talk about that with Clay next.
Clay, let's transition over to basketball just for a moment before we get into this relationship with Tony Vitello and Dave Van Horn. A lot of basketball news coming across in the past 48 hours when we went off the, or 24 hours, went off the air yesterday. And making the headlines was Arkansas getting another transfer coming out of Texas A&M, Jackson Robinson. And this kid's coming in with 4 years of eligibility. And, Clay, I think this kind of a player with what he can do, with what we've seen of him, 6'7", 193 wing, fits right into the Eric Musselman system.
Yeah, he's a shooter. I mean, that's the main thing. And I think that you always need another shooter. And, there's teams that do not like how Eric Musselman cuts them up in man-to-man with his set plays. And they'll jump in a zone. And this is a guy that will shoot him out of that zone. I mean, he can get his shot off, and he is deadly. And I think they thought they were going to get him the first go-round, and then he declared early. He's young. And the next thing that he's enrolled at Texas A&M, and, they thought he would be in this class. So I guess it's turned out exactly how they thought all along, that he would be coming in this class.
So
with 4 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And much like what we've talked about with Devo and Jalen, some of those guys that you can build around, you can easily build around this guy and kind of fill out that maybe like a three-headed monster, I guess, between like the guard, Jalen Williams, the guard and Devo Davis, and now with Jackson Robinson. You pair him up with KK Robinson. The future's bright for this Razorback basketball team once you factor in all the transfers that come in.
Yeah, it's not really surprising, is it? I mean, it seems like he understands how to find players, knows what he wants, and is able to kind of fit all the pieces together in his type of team. Positionless. This guy apparently can play the 2 or the 3, and it's going to be fun. And I think fans are going to just pack the Bud Walton Arena, and they're gonna have a great time. And it looks like he's going to play some tough games. He's got some. So a couple of tournaments and things coming up, and so he's going to trot this team around and show it off, because I think they're going to be good.
Before we get into the new assistant coach, also I want to ask you this too. Now you've got 2 open roster spots on this team. We've had discussions with you on the show, and then with just between me and Phil and Maddie T. What do we do? What do you do now? Do you go out and get a big, or do you try to just fill out this roster with walk-ons? Because Clay, now you're up to 11 guys right now that all are going to be expecting playing time, which obviously we know that's going to come on the practice floor and how all that comes together. So what would you do now if you're Coach Musselman? Do you try to fill out those 2 extra spots within the transfer portal, or just kind of find some walk-ons or something like that and leave those open?
I think that you fill them. I think it's every year you build the roster and you build it out, and things change, and it's he has a knack for limiting playing time, and he'll play 7 or 8, and it will come down. Now you earn your playing time, which every player understands that with him. You perform and you get playing time. Of course, they all think they're going to do that, but if you're not able to play defense, or you've got a hole in your game that causes problems defensively, then you don't get on the floor, and then they figure it out, and there'll be more spots open next year. I don't think it's going to be just a year where he fills up the roster and there's no spots, going forward. It'll be, some guys decide, well, I don't like sitting, for the duration of a game. I don't like that, and so there'll still be some movement next year. I think I'd be surprised if he didn't find at least one more out of those 2. And he might find 2. Just depends on what. There's still a couple of guys out there that I think in the portal that seem to be interesting to him.
It's going to be interesting to see how this whole thing turns out. And then the other bit of news that broke just before we got on the air, the Razorbacks have hired Keith Smart as the new Razorback assistant coach. And Clay, this guy has lots of professional experience in the NBA, the CBA, the minors of the NBA. He's been all around. He's been all around the block. Hasn't coached in about 2.5 years. But Clay, I mean, you can't get much more NBA experience than what you're bringing in with Keith Smart. this is a big-time get for Eric Musselman and the staff.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have big-time NCAA tournament experience where he knows, what that Final Four is like and knows what the big stage. And so he's got the experience and the resume that you would think would be attractive to Eric Musselman. Every time he makes a hire, you nod your head, is like, yeah, that looks like a good one. And they usually are.
Yeah, and this is someone that has played in, an atmosphere with the highest of expectations when you were playing for the Hoosiers in the late 80s.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to the baseball series with Tennessee here. And, it's not just Tony Vitello that's got the Arkansas flavor on that Tennessee coaching staff. Josh Elander is his hitting coach. Elander was student assistant for at least a season under Dave Van Horn, and Luke Bonfield is the assistant student manager, which really just means he's an assistant coach and just not paid. But it really comes down to Vitello, and he was such an integral part to this program for 5 years, 6 years. And there's still some imprints that he's left on this program. While still, I think they've gotten better in the time while Nate Thompson's been here. That's not a knock on what Tony did here, because he's one of the reasons that they had so much success before Nate Thompson, took over as the recruiting coordinator.
Yeah, Tony was really popular with players, with everybody. He engaged with fans. He was good with the media. I enjoyed my time sitting down with him. And one of the cool things that happened when he was here is, that I kind of plugged into his soccer background, and, I asked about, maybe doing an interview with his dad, Greg Vitello, who's in the Missouri, I guess about 4 different Hall of Fames. Won state championship at DeSmet High School in St. Louis, both in soccer and baseball. And he just turned out a ton of players over 40 years in both sports, including some MLS players, some guys that Tony played soccer with in high school. And, it's not easy to play soccer and baseball at the same time, but Tony did it, and his dad coached him, and, I don't think that's probably easy. But a great thrill. I sat with Greg at a Razorback game. He came down to watch Tony coach, and we sat together in the stands and kind of went through some things. My daughter played college soccer, so we had a lot of soccer conversations, and that went with Tony as well. He loved talking about his soccer days. And, I don't think he was a great soccer player, but he was one of those intangible guys that played in the back of a defense, and, he read things. And I don't think Tony was the best pitching coach or the best hitting coach. What he was a great motivator. And what I saw is that he was able to push buttons with players to get them to the magic level, to get them to perform better. And the psychic part of it, that is baseball. And boy, there's bad days in baseball. You struggle, you get in slumps, you can't throw a strike, and it's all about the mental, getting you to snap out of that. And I think that's one of Tony's knacks. And, I think he was here to learn how to be a head coach. He told me that right off the bat. And he says, this is a case study of Dave Van Horn, so I can be a head coach. I want to learn. And, I think that's what happened too.
It was always a lot of fun when Tony was the hitting coach, to be around the batting cage during batting practice, because he has very specific ways of phrasing things. And I think that always got the players going a little bit. I just loved hearing him talk hitting openly to the hitters, not the one-on-one kind of stuff, because I'm not getting in on that. Just around the cage, there were these Tony Vitello phrases that just still ring true with me. And he's a really intense kind of coach. That's the kind of guy that Dave is too. And I feel like, I don't think he learned his intensity from Dave, but inside both of them, you can see that intensity burning really brightly.
Oh, he can be ejected in a heartbeat, because he's not afraid to challenge an umpire, and he will. I think he'll say the magic word too. And there's one that you can say, and it's the old thumb right away. And but I think the players really like that.
I think they do too.
Yeah.
I think.
The fire, comes out. It's like, well, that's what I would say to that umpire.
That's right. Well, the hour of halftime.